I still don't have a beer to crack, so
Dang. Crack that mind beer.
probably doesn't taste as
We're
good.
just cracking open the ideas.
Yeah. What's up, y'all? Today's probably going to be kind of a relatively short stream, because we're going to talk about Spearhead. Even though that's not what the graphic says, that's definitely what we're talking about. Stand by. There we go. Look at that. The graphic has said that the whole time.
Yeah, it looks like it said that to me.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about Spearhead. We just played our first game of Spearhead on stream on Monday, which was Magakin of Nurgle versus Cruel Boys. It was a very
How'd that go for you?
fun stream. I don't want to talk about it. It was fun. It was a fun game. Even though I failed far too many saves on my Killer Boss, I was sad, but I was still having fun, even though I was sad. We've played a few other games outside of just what we played on stream. So we're gonna give you guys our thoughts after having a few games under our belts. If you are, pretty strictly like a 40k player, or are new to kind of Warhammer in general, and you don't know what Spearhead is, it's basically a small kind of self-contained game of Age of Sigmar. The idea is that you can buy one box called a Spearhead box, and you can use that as your entire army. You don't have to buy anything else. In fact, you can't. You can't buy anything else because all the lists are predetermined. So it's one box, and you're ready to rock and roll.
It's like Combat Patrol.
It's kind of like Combat Patrol, and I do kind of want to talk about that comparison.
Yeah. In Spirit, it's like you buy the box, you've got the force for the game mode, and it's a smaller game mode that's supposed to play quickly.
Yeah,
but
they're both kind of game modes that are meant to get people in the door by being a one box and done kind of game mode. So definitely very similar in that regard. But so if you are a 40k player and you're familiar with Combat Patrol, they are similar, but they're different in, I think, kind of a few important ways that makes Spearhead, frankly, actually a good game as opposed to Combat Patrol.
Yeah. They definitely hit different.
Yeah. So I guess kind of like the big one is, to me, it feels like Combat Patrol was kind of just a tacked on mode to 40k, whereas like, oh yeah, we have these boxes, here's a game you can play with just those things, and not a lot of like thought or care was really put into it. But with Spearhead, it is like its own entirely self-contained game that it uses the core rules of Age of Sigmar, but it is like a separate game altogether. There's like entire systems built around it, like the card system and the whole like the flipping board, and it feels like its own thing, right? You feel that way?
It's definitely different. I have a hard time like really figuring out what makes it different, but it's been a long time since I played Combat Patrol. Like with Combat Patrol, you don't have the board that has the objectives on it. So that's like another step you have to go through, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So in Combat Patrol, basically all you get is like you have your Combat Patrol box, and then as far as rules go, it's like very minimal. There's like a little thing in the core rules, and then you get your preset army list, and you can choose between two like warlord traits or whatever they're calling them now, 2 enhancements, and then 2 like secondary objectives. And then otherwise it's just kind of normal box standard 40k, besides like some data sheet differences here and there.
You just get that one secondary, and then other than that, it's just objective control.
As far as I can remember. I think some of the missions might have like their own little thing, but for the most part, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think the way Spearhead does it with like the I forgot what they're called, but the 3 cards you draw.
Yeah, the battle tactics.
An objective. Battle tactics, yeah. They're either an objective or an ability.
Mhm.
I really like how that works
Yeah,
because, like,
it feels a lot more balanced.
yeah, and like you don't. It's not like where you get in a secondary objective and you're like, well, I can't do anything with this. You always have the ability to fall back on, which
Yeah,
is a nice gameplay thing. You don't feel like you are ever in a position where, because of a game mechanic, you're at a disadvantage to your opponent. You know what I mean? Like in
yeah,
40K, I might get a secondary objective on my turn that, with the composition of my army or where it's at in the game, is pretty much impossible for me to achieve. And if I can't swap it out due to some other game mechanic, it just feels like the game mechanics have boned me.
yeah.
And
Spearhead
so
has
I
like a
really
lot less of
like,
those feels bad moments.
yeah, I like how they did that. The battle tactics are very solid. Uh,
Yeah, and it's not like it's not its only function, like just mitigating those feels bad moments. It also adds like a lot of strategic depth that you would look at Spearhead kind of from the outside and be like, oh, it's just small AOS, like there's not that much to it. Having those things, you have your 3 battle tactics, and it's like either you score them for the victory points or you use the ability. And it adds a lot of strategic depth, right? Because it's like, would I
mhm.
rather have that victory point right now, or would I rather use the ability? Some of those abilities are crazy good, uh, and they can totally swing the game in your favor. So it's like, would I rather score that victory point now, or use that ability and potentially turn the tide for me in future turns, right? So it just adds a lot of
Yeah.
depth to the game.
And you also have to consider, like, what abilities does your opponent have? And there's some, I guess, debate maybe about whether you reveal those. In the book, there's like one graphic with a sentence that says, "Usually these are kept secret,"
Yeah, and
which
in that same
means
picture, they're
behind,
face up on the table.
yeah. Uh, so like you might know what abilities your opponent has, but you have to be like, are they going to potentially use one of these against me on my turn, or are they going to go for the points? And if they're hidden, then you don't know what they are, but you know that they have them because they have a
Yeah,
certain number of cards. Um,
yeah. And I mean, I think we're probably just gonna keep playing with like you just your opponent. You just face up, right? You can see their cards. You know what your opponent's trying to do. Your opponent knows what you're trying to do. I kind of
yeah,
I guess I kind of like understand why you would hide them. I don't know that I love that, but it seemed the way it
from
was worded in the book makes it seem like it's an optional thing, not really you have to do it, right?
yeah. So from like a game design or like a strategy standpoint, I can understand the value of having them hidden. But to me, I feel like the spirit of Spearhead is a very casual, fast game,
Mm-hmm.
and in that lens, having them be revealed so that your opponent knows what they are, it's a very open game. You're just like rolling some dice, having some fun. Seems more appropriate to me. But
Very, very beer and pretzels.
yeah, there's nothing wrong if you want to, have like a little micro sweat
Mm-hmm.
on the Spearhead board and like
Yeah,
have hidden objectives. You know,
yeah. And it's just like ask your opponent beforehand, hey, you want to play face up, face down?
yeah,
Uh,
I think that's the key: is decide beforehand and then
yeah.
play it how you want to.
And I mean that kind of thing applies to pretty much all war games, right? It's like, oh, do you want to
Yeah,
implement this house rule? Sure. Um, yeah. Um, but yeah, it's. I guess to like sum all that up is that Combat Patrol really feels like it is just baby's first 40K, whereas Spearhead feels like its own distinct thing. I almost it's very rare that I am like, oh man, I really want to play some Combat Patrol right now. Because I would rather just play a normal sized game of 40K over Combat Patrol basically any day.
yeah,
But with Spearhead, it's definitely like, oh man, I could go for some Spearhead right now because it is just like
hmm
a fast pace. It's like very intense, but it's also super fun. Even when you're rolling a fuck ton of failed saves and losing your big monster, uh, you're having a good time. Um, and it feels faster to me than Combat Patrol. I don't know if that like actually adds up, but it feels faster.
Yeah, it definitely felt faster to me. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It would be because it seems like you'd have about the same amount of models
Honestly,
moving
it
around the
seems
board.
like it should be slower, right? Because you have more steps between like battle rounds. But
Yeah. Is the board space smaller for Spearhead than Combat Patrol, or are they the same size board?
I think Combat Patrol is a little bigger. Which yeah, that might I think or maybe not a little bigger. I think it's literally twice the size. Um
Hmm.
so I guess maybe that has something to do with it. Yeah, I hadn't considered that like board size. Cuz you're in when we play Combat Patrol in 40K, it's kind of like there is still that turn of just positioning and getting ready for your opponent to, peek their head around the corner. Where Age of Sigmar is like, you guys are already, you start 12 inches apart, you're already in each other's fucking grill, ready to go.
Yeah, in the game I played, I got two, or no, I only got one first turn charge off, but I could have potentially gotten three, pretty easily.
Yeah.
Oh, I just rolled really bad for two of
Yeah.
them.
The game we played on stream, my first turn was like, I played pretty conservatively, just like scoring battle tactics, do the bare minimum that I need to score my points, and then just wait. The game that Matt and I played before that, I was wildly aggressive and I got off like a bunch of dart charges on turn one. Um, but yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
As far as like the rules go, I think that the fact that it is basically just the core rules. So Age of Sigmar, they adopted this like modular rules kind of philosophy for fourth edition. And part of that is like core rules and advanced rules from the core rulebook are like two separate modules, I guess. Um, and so the advanced rules includes things like command models and magic and priests and shit. Um, but all the core rules are like here's how you move, do combat, shoot, stuff like that. Um, the Spearhead doesn't use the advanced rules part of it. It only uses the core rules part of it. And so I think that having just like that little section that is like a very clear delineation of what you are and aren't supposed to do in Spearhead versus Big AOS is kind of like a big advantage for it, right? Because I know a lot of times in Combat Patrol, it's like, oh, does this rule function the same in Combat Patrol? I don't know, maybe. And then we have to like go hunting for it. Whereas in Spearhead, it's a lot more clear on what rules do and don't apply to the game you're playing.
yeah, it is definitely like got its own more refined sort of set of rules and plays like a little different, which I think is part of the appeal. Because like if it's just a smaller version of the big game,
You might as well
it
just play
just
a smaller point value of the big game.
yeah, you might as well yeah, exactly.
Which, like,
Oh
when I'm playing Combat Patrol, a lot of times it's like, man, I could just play like a 500 point game of 40k and it would probably be a little bit more balanced than this.
yeah, because some of the combat patrols are wildly different in points.
Yeah.
And I guess they try to mitigate that with rules for the combat patrol, but
hmm One of the big mitigation things that Spearhead does that I kind of liked was the it'll have certain units. It's like this unit can't come on until like turn 3. I feel like
yeah,
for the Magican that actually helped them a lot. um, but in like the Stormcast one, it has like Indrasta, and she's like she can't come on the board until turn 3. And there's a couple
yeah,
different armies that do that kind of thing to be like, you're not gonna have wild pressure at the beginning, so it's kind of like a little drip feed of the full potential of that army, so you're not overwhelmed immediately. I think that's
yeah,
a really interesting like novel balance mechanic.
yeah. I feel like probably some of the combat patrol could benefit from that for different ones,
Yeah,
or it would
the
allow them to have more balanced combat patrols for some factions.
yeah,
But
um, like the what is it? The old Dark Angels combat patrol had just like straight up a Redemptor Dreadnought in it. It was like, huh. that feels like rough at this scale of game.
Yeah, that would be rough.
uh,
I agree with what Sean said. Sean says, honestly, with boarding actions coming back, that's more appealing than combat patrol for 40k.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm hoping boarding actions kind of brings the kind of like a little bit of a different vibe, but the same universe for like a smaller game to 40k that Spearhead does for AOS.
yeah. I am interested, I guess, to see what they do with boarding actions. Um, when they came out, kind of at the tail end of Ninth Edition, I liked them a lot. I liked the boarding actions. They were very fun to play. A lot of them were super thematic. It was an interesting format to play that was like just different enough from Big 40k to be a lot of fun. The problem, I guess, was that when 10th edition came out, it kind of felt like they just straight abandoned it, right? Like,
Yeah,
they came out with a very like rudimentary rule set for it that was pretty similar to the ninth edition, to the point where some of the stuff seemed like it was straight copy and pasted, because some of the rules were just actually not functional. Like they didn't do anything. Um, and so it kind of felt like abandonware, for lack of a better term. But recently they did finally say, hey, we're going to come out with a new boarding actions book. And they showed off like a few of the changes they're going to make to it. So I think it has the potential to kind of be a more interesting game mode than Combat Patrol, if you're looking for like small scale 40k kind of stuff.
yeah, and it looks like they're like each faction has, I forgot what they call it, but like sort of stylized types of boarding parties that have a limited roster to pick from,
Mm-hmm.
like a more curated sort of force organization, which is very much in line with the sort of like Spearhead or Combat Patrol format, where you have like these are the units you're taking, and
Yeah.
you can't bring anything else.
If I remember correctly, in ninth edition, it was kind of like every army just had like a page, and it was like, here's all the units you can't take, and you would just have to build like a 500 point list.
Yeah,
It
there
was
was
it was
like
something like that.
there were certain keywords. If a unit had the wrong keywords, it couldn't be taken in boarding patrol. Other than that, you could take whatever you wanted. And then there was like specific kind of like warrior options, I want to say. I think
Yeah,
you could pick like one
yeah,
warrior option, and then I can't remember. I feel like there was one other thing you could pick. It's been a while.
yeah, yeah. I haven't played boarding actions in a minute. But if the new boarding actions mode is good, we'll give it a shot on stream again. We still got that terrain kicking around, so we can still use
Yeah,
that.
I've got a whole set of it from the what was it? Oh,
Oh
I've got it
wow.
right there. Hold on a second.
Oh, holding
Let me
on.
pull my glasses out and do a boomer move. Soul Shackle.
Oh yeah, I forgot
Yeah.
you got that. Yeah,
Dark Eldar and Arbites.
yeah, that was a cool box.
Yeah.
Um,
I guess I'll have to start putting that together now.
yeah. I think Spearhead is really cool. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I hope boarding actions becomes like 40k's Spearhead. I hope they kind of learn some lessons from the AOS team on how to do
Yeah.
it. Because like it seems like Spearhead is going to kind of be a living format. Because they put out the first Spearhead book. I think I have it right here. Yeah, Fire and Jade, and so it seems like they're potentially going to start coming out with more of these books. Um, and so they could make changes to the format, make changes to like army compositions and stuff like that. Every time they come out with a new one of these books. So
Yeah, I can
yeah,
definitely see the spearheads themselves being like the thing that changes the most, like what their composition is. Like as they come out with new models and upgrade ranges, they want to like push those models and sell them, so they'll release boxes of them, and then having a game format for that where
yeah,
you can just jumpstart an army. That
yeah,
that's just like that's fast tracking people into like getting more plastic crack.
yeah, yeah.
It's like
It,
a new army or army gets refreshed or a new army drops, and you're like, holy crap, that's cool, but like it'd be so much work to start another army. But then they like drop a Spearhead box, and it's like, oh, I could just buy that one thing and be playing them with all those cool models.
Oh yeah.
And that's, just money flying out of people's wallets.
Yeah. It
But
it feels like Spearhead has like a lot of potential to grow as opposed to some of the other smaller game modes that they did.
yeah,
Honestly, it feels not like rules wise or whatever, but just like the level of distinctiveness of Spearhead versus AOS feels more like the way Kill Team is to 40k, if that makes any sense.
yeah, there's enough of a separation.
Yeah.
I mean, Kill Team nowadays has like
Well,
an
Kill
entirely
Team
different
uses
rule system.
doodads and yeah.
Yeah, like
But
they
it's
have a whole
like
different rule system. But like back in old Kill Team, when it still was essentially 40k,
yeah,
but it was very different.
yeah. I think I think Spearhead is closer to being AOS's Kill Team than it is to being AOS's Combat Patrol. Because it is like a very distinct game mode where it still uses the core rules, but it's different enough. It's fast enough. It's kind of just chill enough.
It could stand alone.
Thing.
Like I could see someone being out there being just like, I'm just a Spearhead player.
Oh, totally. I bet there will be
it.
actual just people that are collecting spearheads and that's all they play. I wouldn't be shocked at all.
Whereas Combat Patrol was just more of like a stepping stone. It felt like.
I remember when 10th started, I saw there were like a couple of Combat Patrol tournaments that people were doing. But that seemed like it stopped very quickly. I didn't see any after like the first month or two of 10th edition being out. I wouldn't be shocked to see Spearhead tournaments going for the entire lifespan of 4th edition.
Yeah. It's on a scale where it could just be like, it could almost be like a board game. It'd be a very expensive board game, but
board games are pretty expensive these days. Well, some board games.
Oh yeah, it's true. Some board games come with more miniatures than you would have in 2 Spearheads.
How much does Frostgrave cost?
Frostgrave is a computer game in analog form, in my opinion. Or it should be a computer game. There's too many moving parts in that game.
Not Frostgrave. Is that the one I'm thinking of? No.
Frostgrave or Frosthaven.
Frosthaven, that's the one I'm thinking
of. Frostgrave is the like Mordheim clone. I always
$250? Dadgum. You can get into Spearhead for cheaper than you can get Frosthaven.
And it'll take a way less of your time. I don't have anything against Frosthaven, it's just not for me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's kind of just like a little side point. It's actually not that expensive compared to like, the big game obviously, but also like other premium board games. Necromolds is affordable.
Necromolds, yeah.
I'm intrigued. I'm very intrigued by Necromolds.
The Necromolds, it like reaches inside of my body and tickles my nostalgia for like.
that's what I said, dude. I was like, this is some shit straight out of like the early '90s.
Like they really need to make a commercial where they're like Necromolders.
I wouldn't be shocked if they did.
Like 90s music, playing.
Shit.
But yeah, Necromolds just like looks like dumb fun.
Yeah. So in case you guys don't know what we're talking about, Necromolds is this game that I've seen like floating around YouTube. It is a war game. The big kind of difference between it and most war games is instead of having points for your army construction, you have a certain amount of clay. You have like a ball of clay and different molds to create monsters with. And you can make a bunch of little small monsters or like a few big monsters, depending on how you want to divvy up the amount of clay you have. It's pretty fucking cool.
You have like some pictures you could put up? Not to get too off track, but
maybe.
I mean,
Next,
why
next
not get unhinged?
we're gonna do comparing Spearhead to necromolds. I mean, I can just pull up like the website, I guess.
But yeah, and obviously, I have to imagine when you play necromolds, if you destroy a unit, you get to smash it.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. So when combat happens, the loser, whatever monster loses that combat, the opponent has like a ring. You have a ring, and you use that ring to
Oh,
smush
that's what that's
down.
for.
Yeah, you use the ring to smush down your opponent's monster. Um,
I had to go to work, so I didn't finish that video. I was wondering what the ring was for, because the guy like
um,
gives like a list of items.
yeah. Apparently they can like tie in combat somehow, and if that happens, you squish them both.
Oh, ties are not allowed.
Shit, I'm
Only the
trying to find some
strong
good
survive.
pictures.
But yeah, it looks like a lot of dumb fun, and it's a tabletop war game that uses dice other than D6. It uses
It
D8s
uses
and
D8s and
D10 from what I
D10s,
saw,
yeah.
and doodads. So the
Let's
Play-Doh aspect, I feel like Matt would bounce off of, but if we get him with those dice and doodads, he
You
might
just
be
don't tell
into
him
it.
it's Play-Doh, dude.
I mean, he might forgive the Play-Doh.
There we go. Here's some necromolds. Oh yeah, they came out with like an expansion where you can give your monsters like plastic war gear, basically.
Oh my god, this is amazing.
Dude, it's so
This is
good.
it's so like fucking 90s. I
It's
love it.
incredibly 90s. But
Oh
I'm
my god.
trying. So
Please tell me this thing is not exorbitantly expensive.
I don't think so. It's like $60 for the starter. Yeah, and I think that includes enough for 2 players.
That ain't bad.
There is like this huge bundle that is like I think everything they've ever made. This 300. Uh,
It's still so much cheaper than 40. Slime Sector's a Necromolds channel now?
so
Interesting.
I sent them an email yesterday to see if we can get a review copy of it because I'm wildly intrigued by this game. It
Yeah.
seems really cool.
If you're one of those kids who used to eat his Play-Doh, you'd be like giving yourself a handicap playing that game, though.
It's me.
Just
I'm
taking like
that
little
kid.
nibbles, you like eating your points.
It tastes good, dude. Oh yeah, there's 22 different collectible rings. That's right. Oh, $15 to upgrade the starter edition to 4 players instead of 2. Yeah,
Oh my god.
it's.
We
I
we
want to play
we,
it.
we gotta do that.
Yeah, maybe that's what we do on my birthday. We play necromolds.
I guess you
um.
could make the monsters out of like cookie dough and then
Ah,
eat them when
shit!
you
Don't tell
destroy
me
them.
that. Oh
It wouldn't be
no!
it wouldn't be very sanitary though. You have to play with like plastic gloves. I don't know. I'm
No,
a bit of a germaphobe,
you
so
just line the molds with
well, you could wash the
you
molds.
know,
I mean,
yeah.
it's not the making of the monsters that would bother me. It's like having them on the game board and like moving them around a bunch and they're sitting out.
Mm,
It would kind of start to
I
make
don't
me
care.
itch a little
Cookie
bit.
dough, I'll eat them.
Yeah, I know.
I don't give a shit. I'm a goblin, dude.
You're like a raccoon in a human body.
I am the prophet of garbage. You told me that yourself.
That's a private name. It's not for the public.
The public knows
Uh,
now.
I'll just have to take a few shots and be good to go. Sanitize the system.
We were coming up with all kinds of puns
But
last night. Like you do necromolds tournaments. You have to make it through clay-ins instead of weigh-ins. And then you're playing to make it to playoffs. Yeah.
oh, we gotta have a friggin' Necromolds tournament now.
Yeah, eat your
You can't just
opponent's
have these
monsters,
names
exactly.
and not use them.
uh, very sold on the mold. Yeah, I at least want to get like the starter set and try it out before I
Yeah.
like take a full dive on the $300 bundle.
Yeah, because the rules might be absolute dog water, but
They could, yeah. But the concept I like a lot. So, yeah.
yeah,
There's a chance that we become a
try it out.
necromolds channel now. But now that we've gone fully off
but
the rails, Spearhead is good.
yeah, like as casual as we are with 40k, when we play necromolds, we're gonna be super fucking sweaty.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We're gonna
Super
go
competitive
hardcore.
necromolds.
We are necromolds tournament players.
Professional necromolders. Oh man. But anyway, yeah, Spearhead's good. I'm really hoping boarding patrol is on the same level. I really want them just to take the battle tactics mechanic and just put it in all their games now. Like,
yeah, I
I
mean
want secondaries
it's
in 40k to function like that.
I part of me is kind of hoping that it's like 11th edition 40k, get rid of stratagems. Now they're part of the fucking like secondary cards.
Exactly.
That would be so fun. We should do that. You want to just make our own like spearhead for 40k?
Yeah. Well, what would we call it? I mean, they still have spears in 40k.
Uh, I don't know. We'll come up with a name. We'll call
Strike
it
Force or something.
shell casing. I don't know.
Bolt Slug.
Bolt
40K.
slug, metal slug.
Metal Slug 40k. That'd just be a bunch of grot tanks ramming into each other.
True, giant mechanical Nazi robots. Which I mean,
R.I.P.
that's not out of
grot
place in 40k. Rip grot
So the
tanks.
Imperial Guard, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully 40k can learn some lessons from Spearhead. But yeah. I don't really have too much more to add. I'm just gonna be a little bit of a short stream, but
Yeah. Sean says we gotta wear our best 90s gear for necromolds.
I'm just gonna wear what I wore to the 90s party.
Yeah, none of my 90s gear fit me much past the late 90s, to be honest. I started growth spurting.
Although I might have to get like a different shirt. I don't know how YouTube will be favorable of that Cannibal Corpse shirt that I have because it's kind of fucked up.
I don't remember what it was now.
It's like the cover of it's like the cover of one of their albums. Yeah, I guess you probably don't, huh?
Oh, I remember the 90s party now. Yeah. I don't remember what you were wearing though.
Damn.
But anyway, yeah, Alpha Omega Spearhead is basically combat patrol, but it's got like that little, it's got something extra that makes it pop better. And
hopefully boarding actions gets a little bit of that love.
Yeah.
But yeah, Spearhead much better executed than combat patrol was. There's potential there, but we'll have to see
got
if
a real
GW does it. Yeah. I think 40k needs AOS's rule designers and also their model designers.
Yeah, some of the AOS models, man, look freaking amazing.
Yeah.
So much detail.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, what do we have coming up?
What do we have coming up? On Monday, we're going to be finishing necromolds. No. On Monday, we're going to be finishing with the final episode of our grand narrative. I keep calling it that. It's not the grand narrative. Of our narrative, Throne of Lies. It will be the fourth and final episode where, well, I don't want to spoil too much. It's going to be a fun one.
And after that, we'll start our necromolds narrative.
Yeah, the following Monday is going to be the start of our necromolds grand narrative. It's going to be a 50-part series.
Yeah.
Not actually. I think the following Monday we were talking about doing Necrons and AdMech, but I'll have to double check on that. And then hopefully we'll be getting some more AOS on stream soon because I'm having a lot of fun with it. I want to play some big AOS and some more Spearhead.
Yeah, I definitely would like to do some Spearhead. I've only done one Spearhead so far.
Aw, thanks, One Speed Wonder. Yeah, I'm having fun. I'm ready to rock and roll and call it a night if you are.
I've got nothing else to say.
Cool. Thanks for watching. Tune in on Monday and play some more Spearhead. Later, y'all.